we're going to call the meeting to order. If all those present, if you'll vote aye on the electronic voting board.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. The first bill we want to take up, and I know that there's a lot of people that've got to go to other meetings, but we have the privilege of having Trooper Michael Walter's wife with us today to present to us of the Memorial Highway bill that we have from Delegate Ware. And I don't see Delegate Ware here, but if it's okay, I'll just go ahead and present the bill, because I want to have the ability for Ms. Walter to be able to speak. And as you all know, unfortunately, we've had a rash of incidents that several troopers have lost their lives, and this is a bill that Delegate Ware had asked for, naming a stretch of highway after Agent Michael Walters, and it would be a memorial highway in honor of him. And we are privileged to have Ms. Walter with us today, and we wanted to make the opportunity for her to be able to address the committee, and then we're going to take the bill up and take action on it. Ms. Walter, if you'd like to.
I'm kind of a low speaker, so if I'm speaking low, I apologize. As you know, my name is Jamie Walter. I am Trooper Walter's wife or special agent, but at heart he was a trooper and loved being a trooper. First, I'd like to say thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to have you to consider this bill, and I truly appreciate it. It would be an honor to myself, to my husband, and to our children, Austin, Mason, and Addison, to have this portion in Powhatan, Route 13, in which we do live on, named after my husband. Thank you for having me, and God bless you all, and be safe.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say that, you know, as the chairman of this committee and being a former trooper, once a trooper, always a trooper, and having a son who's a trooper, I understand that family connection. And, you know, I heard a sermon one time entitled, "What's in a Name?" And Michael, your husband, is referred to in the Bible in the book of Daniel as the great protector of the people. And what Michael was doing that day was that very thing. Spent a year doing the same detail he was doing in the city of Richmond, so I understand where he was and what he was doing. And I told Ms. Bates the same thing, that, you know, it's said many times, many ways, when a military man or woman, law enforcement, loses their life, that the scripture of no greater sacrifice has any man than he laid down his life for a friend, people he doesn't even know. And if he had to do over again today, Michael would be doing what he loves. And it would be his desire for everyone to know, and all of us that have been there and done that know that. And he would do it all again tomorrow. And we just appreciate the sacrifice that Michael made and the sacrifice that you've made, and it's not forgotten. And we want to thank you for being here today. Thank you. Delegate Ware, do you have anything you'd like to add?
You said it very, very well, Mr. Chairman. I'll add only this, that in Powhatan today, and well radiating out beyond that, when people say, "I want to be like Mike," it is a standard that is as high as you can imagine.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
Move to report.
Mr. Chairman, I second and speaking to the motion. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Delegate Ware. I know he's been passionate about letting us understand who your husband was and just the dedication that he has. And I think this is the type of thing that Republicans and Democrats come together on. And we want you to know that we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for coming forward. This is truly an honor to honor him in this way.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion and a second that we report the bill. All in favor of that motion will vote aye on electronic voting board.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0. Thank you. Okay, just getting back to our docket and getting back to the actions that we need to take. We have House Bill 672. We were going to take this bill up and do a couple of things with technical amendments that was asked for, but Delegate Kilgore is a little under the weather. Regardless of what we did in this committee, this bill and House Bill 922, Delegate Bulliva's bill, was going to have to be referred to courts. So if we could just go ahead and refer them directly to courts. I'm sorry. Commerce and Labor for 922. Let's take up House Bill 672 first. House Bill 672, is there a motion to refer to courts? It's moved and seconded. We refer to courts. All in favor vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill is referred. Next is House Bill 222, Delegate Bulliva. This bill has to be referred to Commerce and Labor. Is there a motion? This is identical to Senate Bill 908, which is Senator McClellan. All in favor vote aye on electronic voting board.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Next is the bills that we have that are identical bills. We have Delegate Knight. Are you here, Delegate? Delegate Knight, if you'd like to come up. Delegate Knight, this is an identical bill to House Bill, or Senate Bill 73 was Senator Cosgrove and Chafin. Unbeknownst to us, when we passed these out of the Senate, now we have fiscal impacts. And these bills were heard here. The merit of those bills were reported out of this committee, but we're going to have them in finance because of the fiscal impact that is on them.
I think I can fix that.
I think you can.
I mean, really fix the legislation in here because, I put this legislation in last year for farmers, the largest industry, and we already have it, for so many other industries like hauling concrete and tank wagons and everything like this. So in the code, it says that there's no weight limit, no actual spacings on these except for, they can't be under 35 foot. So I don't care if you want to amend my bill to say that they can't be under 35 foot, and then we'll just treat them like all the rest of them.
All right.
I would move that amendment, Mr. Chairman.
All right, there's an amendment requested. If you'll report, Christie, where that would be in the bill if we were to. I tell you what, why don't you go by and let Christie work on that, and then we'll come back to you and.
It'd be just like the rest in the rest of the code, certain places right here. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if we can, he has.
35, and it'll be just like concrete trucks and asphalt trucks and everything else is already in the code.
All right, we'll take that by, but we'll need to hear from VDOT to make sure that does reduce the financial impact. Next is House Bill 999, which is Delegate Stolly. It's identical to Senator Cosgrove. This is dealing with the aircrafts, the definitions, and that one was also requested by Finance.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Senator Cosgrove.
And Delegate Sally, correct me if I'm wrong. I actually had my bill amended to his bill at the request of the Attorney General's office. So his bill and my bill are identical now. And even though it has to go to finance, I'd move that we report his bill as it is.
All right, so there's a motion and a second that we report and refer House Bill 799 to finance. All in favor, vote aye on the electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Yancey here. Mr. Chairman, step right up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have House Bill 800, which is identical to mine now that we have conformed them. This is dealing with the towing fees. And is there, it would be identical to Senate Bill 492.
Need to report the bill in a second.
There's a motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor say, vote aye on electronic voting.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick question.
Quick. Strike the vote.
I'm sorry. My understanding of this bill then would be that Planning District 8 is removed
Yeah,
from
all
the
all
language.
the top language that was dealing with heavy towers and Planning District 8 is stricken out. It's only dealing now with the
The rest of the state.
$135 to $150 on
But
public
the
tows.
150 is a cap.
Yes.
So localities would then have to adopt an
Right.
ordinance. Thank you. I will be voting for the bill.
Move to report.
It's been moved and seconded that we report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Ten ayes, 3 nays.
10 ayes, 3 nays. Delegate Yancey, you have a House Bill 453, which is the Airport Board Authority's funding. If you'd like to just explain that real quickly, it's transparency bill.
Yes, Mr.
I
Chairman.
think dealing with the situation there in
Correct.
Hampton where money
Yes, sir.
came missing and
Correct. Everything is spot on accurate.
and you guys sent him to Bristol.
We are.
Yeah, thanks. All right. It's been a motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Twelve ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports, actually 13-0. Is that complete? Let's see. I think those are the only two bills you have on the docket today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we'll
Thank-
talk about your other bill when we
Yes, sir.
get a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Jones.
Chairman, committee, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Got House Bill 765. I understand this is going to go to finance once,
Got a letter asking for.
yes,
bill
sir,
to
and
come
once we hear it
finance.
today. This bill continues progress made in the last handful of years dealing with just some reforms at VDOT and the Office of Intermodal Planning. This puts into code practice of the CTB on the SMART scale and state of good repair. The projects must be fully funded in a 6-year improvement plan, and it directs the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment to develop a 6-year plan, improvement program, and oversee loan programs for CTB. Full disclosure, since it is going to finance, I did have a meeting this morning with a couple of industry stakeholders. They had a couple of concerns, and I'll mention them to you on lines 30 to 33. They would like to have us look at that a little bit further in detail, and also lines 54 to 55. They wanted to potentially put in there the 6-year plan for the Office of Intermodal Planning when they look at this, because it's changing the process today. And be glad to answer any questions that you do have. It does change the board composition as far as some of the population thresholds. I believe we had Abington, Augusta County, Waynesboro, Harrisonburg considered urban, and that really wasn't fair to the rest of the quote-unquote, to that area and the rest of the Commonwealth. That cleans that up. It codifies administrative reform, and like I said, it builds on the reforms of the last 4 years. Have Nick Donahue here who can maybe answer some of the technical questions that you might have. And stand before you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can get Nick to come up real quick and just talk about the changes as we discussed with the I-81 corridor with the urbanized, the way that you guys are looking at that right now.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Nick Donahue, and I serve as Deputy Secretary of Transportation. As Chairman Jones noted, there are some modifications to the population thresholds on the CTB section. There are 5 at-large members of the CTB today. At least 2 must be urban and 2 must be rural, and the third can be either, as the governor may choose at any time. That was put in place in 1986. And if you look at some of the places that since 1986 to today have crossed over the magical 50,000 population threshold, I think it's many parts of the state that you would probably consider rural as we have these broader discussions. So since 1986, the urbanized area of Bristol has gone up the 81 corridor about 15 miles and now includes Abingdon. In 2012, almost all of Augusta County, as well as Waynesboro and Stanton, became an urbanized area. In 2000 or 2005, Rockingham, as well as Winchester and Frederick counties, also became urban. And so with those thresholds that we have in place now, it's actually really constraining the areas where the governor and others may look for rural members to appoint to the board. And I think if you talk to many people, some of these areas that are now considered urban under the current statute are areas that we would probably say would be a rural member from the 81 corridor. And so it is constraining in the types of folks that we may appoint to the board.
All right. Any questions of Secretary Donahue?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Senator McClellan.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for the secretary or the patron, but on lines 317 to 323, when you reduce the amount allocated for revenue sharing from 200 million to not more than 100 million, what's the reason for that reduction?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McClellan, under statute today, the revenue sharing program can be anywhere between 15 million and 200, and so there was a kind of an uncertain amount there. The Commonwealth Transportation Board, after we developed Smart Scale, appointed a group that I think consisted of 5 of the 14 members that spent a year studying the revenue sharing program, and so this would codify some of the reforms they've put in place. And I wouldn't say that it lowers the amount going to revenue sharing from 200 to 100 million. Today, it is 100 million. And so what this would do is provide certainty and increase the minimum amount that can go to the revenue sharing program from 15 million to the current practice of 100. You also will see the reference after 100 at the end of that new language, or 7% of funds available under the construction formula. So over time, if the construction funds grow, the revenue sharing program will also grow into the future, which was a recommendation of the CTB subcommittee that worked on this.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Well, at least one of my localities is concerned that the total amount available for projects will be reduced under this bill. Can you?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McClellan, that is not the case. Last year, there was 100 million available, and under this bill, there would be guaranteed 100 million available.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For either the patron or Deputy Secretary Donahue, have any exemptions been granted to Smart Scale at this point in time?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Marsden, there have been, I believe, approximately 5 or 6 projects in total that the board has chose to select that weren't in the top rounds, but the board has complied and funded only projects evaluated under Smart Scale. I'm not sure I fully understand your question, so I apologize if I wasn't clear.
Have there been any exemptions? I think there has been some, requests to be exempted from Smart Scale and decisions being made on projects outside of that for, reasons, but.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Marsden, I apologize. I misunderstood your question. The answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? And I think looking at everything, and Secretary, correct me if I'm wrong, this language kind of strengthens the Commonwealth Transportation Board's accountability of how they're approaching these things and makes them look at these projects closer and have to, take account for what they've done. All right, bills before us. As I said, this has been requested to go to finance. So if we report this bill out, it has to be referred.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
I would just want to comment that Chairman Jones seemed fairly convinced that this bill was going to pass and then go to Senate Finance. So I'd move to report.
All right, I was wondering where we're going with that. So, it's been moved and seconded that we report and refer to finance. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Bills reported, see in finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think we're now back to where we started with Delegate Knight. If you'll tell us what you've explained what your amendments are. If we can get council to report that amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 18 of the engrossed, after a combination, insert having no less than 35 feet of axle space between extreme axles, comma.
Could I speak to that?
Sure.
Yes, sir. In the code 46.2-1143, it allows for overweight permits for coal haulers, trucks hauling gravel, sand, asphalt, crushed stone, and certain liquids from gas and oil wells, that if we're already doing it for these people, and we've already done it, 90,000 pounds is 90,000 pounds, no matter if you're hauling farm produce or if you're hauling this. So I kind of wonder why we have a fiscal impact on this if it's already being done in the state of Virginia.
There's just a little bit of a difference with the coal haulers. They pay a coal severance tax that pays for any damages that are done.
I paid a lot of taxes in 42 years of
I
farming,
understand
too.
that. I just want to clarify that there is a severance tax on those that.
You're right, but
that
they
are-
do have other, sand and gravel,
Right.
et cetera. I just kind of were thinking we'd be treated the same
All
as
right,
them.
Senator Cosgrove.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you know, I carried this bill on the Senate side. I'm glad that Delegate Knight has come to a resolution on this, and I'll ask that my bill in the House be treated the same, I guess. I just want to make sure that everybody understands now there's a coal severance tax, but all the other weighted trucks are not paying a severance tax. So this really is an equality issue between the industries. And so I hope that we would support the bill.
Yeah, all right. I guess you got some people back here that wants to say that they like it.
Well, we've got everyone from agribusiness to Purdue to every commodities group that I can think of, supporting it. So if they want to raise their hand or speak, that's up to you. I mean, I've got a whole dissertation here, but I couldn't do as well as the senator has done. So we've heard this bill before. You might just want to ask who's in support of it.
Okay, just show of hands who's in for it. I know y'all like it. Is there a motion on the amendment?
I move the amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay, the amendments are, there's a motion on the amendment, and there's a second. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then there's a motion that we report and refer to finance.
Second.
All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board. All right.
11 ayes, 2 nays.
11 ayes, 2 nays. Thank you. Delegate Garrett. Delegate, your bill is identical to mine.
I think,
with
Mr.
a
Chairman,
couple of-
just 2 line amendments, yes. sir, to
Couple of
make my amendment.
amendments striking the shall to may, I believe.
May to shall, yes,
May to
sir.
shall, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendments. If you'd like to report just the lines that they cover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 12 of the engrossed, after department, strike may and insert shall. And on line 12 of the engrossed, after and, strike may, insert shall.
All right, there's a motion and a second that we adopt those amendments. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Now this is the federal pilot program study that we have debated. It's identical to the bill that I had passed off the floor. Is there a motion on the bill? There's a motion and a second to report the amended bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Eleven ayes, 2 nays.
Bill reports 11-2. Thank you.
I thank the chairman and the committee.
House Bill 1349, Delegate Fowler's bill, is identical to Senator Vogel's bill, 601, which was a trespass towing bill. Is there a motion that, it's been moved and seconded that we report House Bill 1349. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Eleven ayes, one nay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm voting on the prevailing side, of which we passed House Bill 1349. Request we reconsider that.
All those in favor of reconsidering the vote on House Bill 1349, vote aye on electronic voting board. All right.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Once again, House Bill 1349, identical to 601 that we passed out of this body. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
All right, bill's reported 13-0. Delegate Ingram. Delegate Ingram has House Bill 1522, which is identical to Senate Bill 905. Senator Ruff's bill dealing with commercial rest area spaces.
And I think everybody is happy with this. I've amended mine to be as identical to Frank Ruff. And it prohibits the private entity from operating the rest area for commercial purposes without the approval of the General Assembly. And that's basically it. But it doesn't take effect until July 1. Anything that's in effect now, like the vending machines that are there by the deaf and blind, that all stays the same. It's just that the federal government is, this year, I think, is planning on changing this so that it'd be up to the state. That's all it does.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. We report the bill. All in favor say vote aye on electronic voting board.
Mm. 12 ayes, 1 nay.
Did you mean to vote no?
No. Mr. Chairman,
Just strike the vote and we'll do it again. Now, is everybody ready to vote aye on electronic voting board?
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0. The other one, 1523, is identical to Ruff, dealing with commercial signs.
And that's signs and advertisement. That's
It's been moved to report, and there's a second.
Identical to
All
Frank
vote
Ruff.
aye on electronic voting board.
No opposition on that one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you.
You did a great job. Thank you.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you.
No. Okay, now that we've got the identical bills out of the way, Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 581. Well, this bill will allow as an inspection station to do inspections either by first come, first serve, or by appointments. It's their choice. Let the business do it the way that they need to operate.
All right. Is there any questions, the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
I'd just like to speak to the bill. I passed a similar bill to this last year. This is the way I wanted my bill. I think it's the way it ought to be. It's a private business. Let them do business the way they want to. I move to report the bill.
There's a motion and, all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Wexton.
question for the patron.
Yes.
So this would get rid of the requirement that they have at least 2 lanes in order to do appointment only. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Senator. The problem we're having on the Eastern Shore is that most of our repair shops only have 2 bays, if that. And people are having to bring their cars at 5 in the morning and wait and hopefully be the first in line. I'm lucky that I have more than 1 bay. So we actually do them by appointments, and it actually works out far better for the customer. They can call and set up an appointment at their convenience, at our convenience, and we can get them in and out. Otherwise, they come and wait on a first come, first served basis. And there are some stations on the shore that are telling them to bring their car and leave it this week. We'll get to it when we can. And I just think this is just a better way to do business.
Mr. Chairman, following up on that.
Senator Wexton.
You got, on the shore in those parts of Virginia, you guys don't have emissions inspection as well, do you? Do you have
No,
emissions?
no, ma'am.
Okay.
What we do have, though, is it takes a half an hour. I mean, it takes a half an hour to do a state inspection correctly. So it's not long before, if you have one inspection bay, that you have a line waiting, because they know if they leave, their spot won't be saved. And it's one of the biggest arguments you'll have in the parking lot of someone saying they're first, I'm before you. So if you can write them down and make appointments, it just kind of cleans up that argument.
All right, Senator Cosgrove.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Delegate Blacksman can correct me if I'm wrong, but each one of these inspection lanes has specialized equipment used for that inspection process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Senator.
So if you wanted to have multiple lanes, some do appointments and the other come first served, that business owner would then have to invest that additional money and that additional equipment to make that happen. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Senator. Sometimes the equipment is mobile, and you can roll it from one, but each individual lane has to be certified. It's got to be certified by the state police. It's got to be level. It's got to meet criteria of the length and width and everything that you do. Usually you have one bay for inspections set aside for it, because that's where all the tools and stuff that you'll have there.
So you're just given an option. You can still take the appointments.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
just
This will allow
option of the patron as to whether they.
Option of the inspection station to do it the way that they operate their business. I mean,
Right.
we take appointments even for oil changes.
Right.
And so everything we do is by appointments.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so I'm clear, if you have you ever had situations where your whole day is booked and somebody shows up, you just say, can't do it? It's all by appointment.
Yes, sir, Senator. In fact, that's the way it is, whether it's first come, first serve, or by appointments. At least by appointments, I know that my day is booked, and I say I can't do it today, but I can do it tomorrow at 11. If I can't take appointments, then I just say I can't do it today. I've got 8 of them lined up, and then they come back the next day and stand in line again, which is kind of a crazy way to do business.
So one more question real quick.
Yes, sir.
So for the individual whose inspection sticker is expired, they can't drive to that inspection station without an appointment. If they get stopped between your station and where their home, if they don't have that appointment, they can issue the summons.
Yes, sir. But if they have an appointment, then that they will not be issued a summons.
Right. So they're still going to be allowed to make that appointment regardless.
Yes,
if
sir.
that is expired.
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Bruce Keeney, we have a couple of clients interested in this issue, but particularly the Northern Virginia Gasoline Marketers Council, which is largely the service stations with one-bay operations providing these services. The truth of the matter, what has transpired is that they're getting complaints from their customers in that I make an appointment for my haircut, I make an appointment for a dinner reservation, how come I can't make an appointment to get my car inspected? And what we're finding in reality is that's what's already taking place to meet consumer demand. As far as they're concerned, what this will in fact do is just legitimize what's already taking place because of market conditions and the wishes of the consumer. I will also tell you, which surprised me a little bit, in that I live out in Goochland. Most of the stations that we represent in Northern Virginia, if somebody needs to, they drop the car off, and they still, by and large, and it makes business sense, they're still driving them home, picking their car up, and returning it to their house. That's the way they keep good customers that way. But to answer your question specifically, a lot of the service stations, bulk of your state inspections are also emission. Some have 2 lanes, some have just 1. In Northern Virginia, you are, however, seeing some with the on-road remote testing, though arguably that's not been as popular as people suggested. But what now we are seeing is that that law on emissions also allows handheld scanning, so you don't have to go into a bay to get your emissions inspection. Probably within a year, you'll be able to get your emissions inspection while you're getting gas.
All right. Any further questions on this bill? It has been a motion and a second that we report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
$12 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, bill reports 12 to 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And I know there's several on the sign-up sheet, but I'm the chairman. I'm going to take one out of order. Delegate Austin. Welcome
Chairman.
back, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
You're
Good to
looking
be back.
good.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you being
It's the
here.
first time I've been told I look good, but you know,
Well,
I prefer it.
I've been known to tell a fib or two, so that's
Healthy probably would suit you better. Thank you all. I've got today, Mr. Chairman, a little small bill for Botetourt County. It's House Bill 1571. It designates a portion of Route 220 in Botetourt County as Colonel William Preston Highway. Colonel Preston served 6 years in the Virginia House of Burgesses prior to my time.
But not Senator Saslaw, right?
No, well.
Served with
I
him.
would question.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Thank
you,
you
ladies
for
and
being
gentlemen.
here.
Thank you.
All right. Delegate, we have Delegate Simon. We heard this bill last week. Delegate Simon.
Chairman, it's House Bill 287. This is the Stop Gun Violence license plate. I don't know if you all adopted the substitute. I guess the substitute was presented to you all, which would taking the amendment off.
We had this debate last week about the amendment that was taken by the House, 89-9, I think, 89-9-1, and sent to us. Of course, it was adopted 50-49, and then the bill passed 89-9.
Right.
And you had a substitute to remove that, to strike it, and we did not take that substitute up at the time.
Right. So I prefer that it go back to the way it was before, but if y'all are inclined to leave it the way it is, I'd prefer that the bill pass with a.
Well, I have a substitute that I think can give you a little bit of comfort. I don't know. I have a feeling you're probably going to be in the same posture, but because we have a fast rule of having the 450 because the amendment's on it is where the problem is. My substitute, Chrissy, if you can pass that out. There's a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, say aye. All right. Let them see it first. Basically, I'll explain to you what the substitute does. It's a enactment date that gives you the time to get the signatures that you're going to need with that amendment on it. It's a delayed enactment, and that way it doesn't violate the rules that the standing rules this committee has had about the 450 additional signatures that would be required.
Okay, so what this sub would do is it delayed enactment date, and nobody get a license plate until this happened.
Right.
I had sort of experimented with a version where folks that had signed up under the old plan could get their plate as a $10 plate, and then future ones would be at 25, but you prefer to do it this way, it sounds like. I can live with that.
Okay. All right. Now, with the substitute before, there's a motion and a second that we adopt the substitute. All in favor of adopting the substitute to House Bill 287, say aye. All opposed? All right. The bill's before us as a substitute. It's been moved and seconded. We report Senate Bill 287 as substitute. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Hurst.
You know what the weather is today?
Yep.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay, I think now we fully understand everything you're trying to do. I think everybody's been lobbied pretty hard. Everybody knows now that there was a Attorney General's opinion that said that the current way that this was going is not authorized by law. Your bill is going to give them 90 days now. If they don't pay the property taxes, then they can be, that 90-day can be removed. And I think everybody understands that. If no one does, we can.
Move to report.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we report. I am going to reluctantly vote for it, but I just think nobody should get it. I think they should have to go see their neighbor and tell them they need to borrow their car because they don't pay their taxes and see how that works out for them.
Oh, dear.
All in favor, vote aye.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the patron, of course.
Okay.
So is that your second or third bill out of the Senate? Or to the floor, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, to the senator, I believe this would be the third bill to the full floor, but
We're getting rusty. We're getting rusty. Yeah. Well, congratulations. I think that's the first one out of transportation.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Hope it was a good, hard lift for you to get it out of here.
It was taxing, for sure. No pun intended. Thank you.
Yeah, I got you. All right. All right, Delegate Fillicorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Before you, you have 708, and I look at this, as I've shared with all of you, as a safety bill. This bill deals with our most vulnerable constituents, our children and our grandchildren. What 708 does is it would require children's car seats to be rear-facing up until the age of 2 or until the child reaches a certain age or height limit with regard as it relates to their specific car seat, whichever occurs later. And the current law requires children to be rear-facing until age 1. And really, this is all about safety. And I've spent quite some time speaking with all of you about it. There was a lot of support for this in subcommittee and in committee, and it passed overwhelmingly in the House with a few handful of no votes. The CDC states that motor vehicle facilities are the leading cause of death in children, as we all know, and children of this age group are 75% less likely to die or to sustain a serious injury, either concussion, head or neck injury in a rear-facing car seat. So it's all about saving lives and preventing accidents. The rear-facing car seats limit the motion of the head, and as has been displayed and explained to me, it reduces the potential for a neck or concussions. It also states the American Academy of Pediatricians has also stated that young children's bones and ligaments are still developing, as we all know, at this stage, and so it's important for them to be rear-facing. Rear-facing car seats prevent the head from moving independently and proportionally. And I think it was the National Highway Safety Administration has indicated that among children under 5, an estimated 266 lives were saved in 2015 by restraint use. This bill has a lot of support. I've been working with a large group of stakeholders, including the AAA, recommended by the National Highway Transit Safety Administration, CDC's National Center for Injury and Prevention and Control, also the Children's Safety Network, Children's Hospital King's Daughters in Norfolk, Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU, Make Safe Happen, and the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. And I hope you all will support and report this bill out.
All right, so I have a couple of questions. I'll try to just condense them. Number one, the numbers. Do you have the numbers of children? I know you gave the 75% likely to be saved, but do you have the numbers opposed to rear-facing and front-facing injuries and deaths?
We actually, yeah, Mr. Chair, we also have a few people here that would be willing to testify. I think we have Georgine with Bluming with AAA and also Patrick Cushing. They might be able to answer some more questions. But Mr. Chairman, per your question, for the National Highway Safety Administration, among children under 5, an estimated 266 lives were saved in 2015 by restraint use. Of the 266 lives, 248 were associated with the use of child safety seats and 18 with the use of adult seatbelts.
But how many of those were rear-facing?
I don't know that we actually have those statistics, but.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm Georgine Blumling from AAA. I'm also a nationally certified child passenger safety instructor. Unfortunately, we don't have those statistics because the state of Virginia nor any other state currently keeps specific records on rear-facing versus forward-facing. 10 states have moved to a rear-facing until 2, but at this point, those statistics are not available.
All right. Senator Cosgrove.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment on the bill. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'll tell you, this is my granddaughter. And my wife and I went out and bought a child seat for our car. And being the engineer that I am, I went to the fire station and put in. And the firefighters there were adamant that these seats need to be rear-facing, that they are much more effective facing the rear for the safety of the child. And I just, if it's good for the firefighters, and actually the car seat instructions recommends strongly that the car seat be facing backwards. So I'm going to support the bill, Mr. Chairman. No, I didn't make a motion. I just want to support the bill.
I do have Senator McClellan that's in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all know, I actually have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and for both of them, the pediatrician very strongly recommended that they stay in the car seat rear-facing until 2. I actually thought it was the law. But what I do like about this bill, which I think is very important that it be added, is it allows an exception if you have a child who is, because of their weight or their height, is too tall. Because sometimes you do have children who are taller than the average 2-year-old, and without this bill, you wouldn't be able to have an exemption for a child who, because of their height, rear-facing is inappropriate. And so, even if this bill did nothing else but that, I think it'd be very important. But the fact that it does conform the law to what pediatricians are already recommending, as well as the firefighters and other safety professionals, I think are very important.
Right, so that begs the question that I've had, enforceability. So if the parent says, my child is 2 years, 2 months old, and the officer doesn't believe her and cites her the ticket, are we going to start requiring parents to carry around birth certificates now so that the officer knows how old these children are?
Mr. Chairman, yes, as when you brought this up, and this question had been asked before, currently the law is such that children have to be in car seats up until the age of 8. So it is currently the law of the primary offense as well for an officer to pull over a car and actually ask the age of the child to ensure that that child is of age and 8 or under if they're in order to be in their car seat. It's up to the discretion. It's not has not been an issue thus far, and it's currently the law. So this bill does not change that at all. And yes, the police officer could ask the parent
But
or
it
the
does
guardian.
change it. It now turns them around. It's starting to delineate between a 2-year-old now and an 8-year-old and which way they're facing.
Yes, I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I might, but the law, as far as the discretion of the police officer, the police officer could pull over somebody and could inquire. How would they justify, how would they explain the age of their kid? They would not have to show a birth certificate. What is done currently is the police officer asks the guardian who's in the car the age of the child.
And they're just going to have to accept that.
That's what the law is currently, I believe. That's exactly what's done currently to date.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
I'm going to defer to your trooperness. And
they're just not going to enforce it.
well, I guess the question is that basically if the law enforcement officer pulls somebody over, the person driving the car can say, well, this child is 2.5. If the officer doesn't believe it, he can still cite the driver. Is that correct?
He can, and then there's going to have to, you're going to have to bring that driver to court. You're going to have to go through the process of presenting a birth certificate to prove that. That's the issue. Senator DeStaff.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
He's in the queue.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I did some research onto this, and you actually, for infants, you can't get them that are front-facing anymore, only convertible or rear-facing. And I did a little scientific research and talked to the Geico Gecko, and they support this, and I didn't hear them on the list of supporters. But with everything I did on this, on the research, I actually will be supporting this as well, and at the appropriate time would make the motion to pass.
Senator Favola.
Report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think everybody has said everything that probably needs to be said about this bill. So if we really do care about safety, unless you feel there's somebody in opposition to this bill who we haven't heard, I think it's time to report it out. So I will make a motion to report the bill.
Right, we,
Well, my motion can hang in abeyance until we hear from you.
okay. There was somebody else in the queue. I just deleted them. Who was that? Senator Chase. The Chase kids old enough to get my
I'm
car
ready
seat
to tell you
yet?
another Chase story. Are you ready, Mr. Chairman? As a mom of 4 kids within 6 years, I can tell you this one is very familiar to me. And I will tell you, I mean, I support, whatever the American for Pediatrics board will say. I think my only concern would be I've had situations with my kids when I had 4 car seats, if you can imagine, at one time. And sometimes you run into logistics issues with which way they're turned. And also, I would say to that, if you have a sick kid that has projectile vomiting, which we won't go into detail today, there are also some safety concerns that a pediatrician could potentially have. And so I just wonder what exceptions there would be in this measure, because I don't want parents to be arrested for having their kid turn around backwards when it actually might be safer to have it the other direction.
And just for clarification, this was not said by the patron. This is a $50 civil penalty. Second offense, $500.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Chase, there is an exemption for a medical exemption. So if there is an issue through your physician, there is a medical exemption, so you can have them turned around.
So, Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question on that. So I mean, I don't always take my kids to the doctor every single time they get sick. You just know they're sick and you wait past the 3-day rule type thing. Does this mean that I'm going to have to go to my pediatrician every time my kid gets sick? And, they can have allergy issues, they can have acid reflux.
Again, I believe I don't want to speak on behalf of the AAA, but basically, regardless of whether they're ill or whatnot, it's still recommended that they be rear-facing. But yes, you can get an exemption from your physician.
I was going to say, Mr. Chairman and Senator, yes, currently there are exemptions for medical, overweight, things like that are already in the current law. And as the manufacturers of the car seats, as well as your pediatrician would tell you, normally a rear-facing child, because of the angle of the rear-facing, may be safer anyway. So whether they're sick or not, it's probably safer as far as the crash protection to make sure they get to the doctor's office safely, that they be in that rear-facing position.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to report.
Senator McClellan.
So two very quick points, and just to piggyback on what she said, because I actually my daughter was a preemie who had significant acid reflux, and the only way to treat that is actually to put them at an incline. And even sitting at home, she sat in her rear-facing car seat so that she would be at that incline, so that it would help her with her acid reflux, so that she could not have all kinds of issues. So number one. Number two, for children 2 and under, you have, if you remember, many more visits to the pediatrician than you do with your older kids at certain month points. And so as a practical matter, if the doctor thinks that your child needs an exemption for a medical reason, for height, for their weight or anything, they're going to take care of that at your regular checkup. They're going to give you the waiver form. And so I think if a physician really believes this child shouldn't be in a rear-facing car seat, they're going to have many opportunities between birth and 2 to make that determination.
Senator Steph.
Mr. Chairman, move to report.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I call a pending question.
Okay, no one's else in the queue to speak. So all those in favor of reporting House Bill 708, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Ten ayes, 3 nays.
Bill reports 10-3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right. Delegate Bell, House Bill 134. Your bill has a substitute which will mostly conform except for the threshold on the bill of the $15 and $10 mill in the Senate bill, which was Senator Black's, dealing with value engineering. Is there a motion on the substitute?
So move the substitute. Second. Move the substitute.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute, which now makes this conform except for the thresholds of the $10 and $15 million threshold. All right, you want to speak to the bill real briefly?
Very briefly, we've conformed the House bill. There was one other difference in the Senator Black's and in my bill. That was one referred to, mine referred to project costs, his construction costs. I will tell you, we already changed that in the House, so they two should be exactly the same now. Okay. And this bill, actually, what we're trying to do, it hadn't been raised, the threshold, since 2001. By raising it up, I'm a fan of value engineering, but it costs between $50,000 and $200,000 to do a value engineering study. And if a study is just below the threshold, goes over due to unexpected causes during the middle, it actually slows the project down by usually up to 6 months and costs $50,000 to $200,000. And in fact, we'd spend money that would not be returned due to the study. So this raises it to a level which we believe, based on the projects that were done in the past couple of years, would eliminate those that would not be cost effective. And it does have, I believe, broad support of industry.
All right. Anyone in the audience like to speak, say they're in favor? Everybody okay with the substitute?
Mr. Chairman, question.
Questions, Senator Cosgrove?
Thank you. Does VDOT have a position on that?
Mr. Chairman, we actually...
Let's hear from VDOT.
She's here. Joanne, do you have a position?
Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. We don't have a position on the bill, but we're very comfortable with the substitute.
Right. Okay. Anyone else on the committee like to speak to the bill? Anybody have a motion on the bill? Oh, I'm sorry.
Move the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now there's a motion to report and a second. All in favor to vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Bagby. This is the TNC vehicle bill. There's a substitute to conform it to Senator Cosgrove's Senate Bill 128. As you'll recall, is the interior dress, trade dress with the lights on the TNC vehicles. Is there?
Move the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, now we have the bill conformed, identical to the bill that we passed out of this. All right, there's a motion and a second to report House Bill 830. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board. Good job.
My goal was to say at least possible.
Hey, Mama said aye.
11 ayes, 0 nays.
Delegate Pillion. Oh, I'm sorry. Delegate Keem. I didn't see you sitting there. Well, you don't have an identical bill.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And you need to sit and listen to all this. It's good for Northern Virginia.
I actually enjoyed it, Mr. Chairman, and since I'm not on the Transportation Committee, it's good to hear these conversations. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 387 was, the issue that I was trying to address with this bill was brought to my attention by a young man in my district who said that when he first got his license at 16, and when he turned 21, he wanted to get the license that was printed horizontally as opposed to vertically. The problem was the old process the DMV had was that your first license expired in 4 years if you're getting it at 16, which meant that at 20 years old, you get your new license. And that expires in 8 years, which means that for 8 years, you got a license that's printed underage, even though he's overage. And the reason why we looked into this, and the reason why was because I guess there was a couple of changes that happened over the last few years where there was a rule that required DMV to have somebody that has a moving violation retake their exam, written exam. And because the first time out in 5 years, you wanted to have that exam taken before you turn 21. That was the original reason why they had that deadline. Bottom line is the current code now says you can't have licenses that expire longer than 8 years, but there's no minimum. So the DMV has now changed the process so that the licenses don't expire before 21, but on the code, it actually allows them to do so if they want to. So basically what we're doing is to make sure that the licenses don't expire before 5 and after 8. And that'll solve the problem of having a young person who gets his first license get the license expired before he turns 21, because that's that requirement of having to retake that written portion is no longer in place. And that sounds really confusing, but it's actually not that confusing. It's a pretty simple bill.
All right. Anyone on the committee?
We hear from DMV.
Sure. Yeah,
All right,
and I worked with the DMV on the amendments.
DMV,
I worked with the DMV on the amendments, so that was their language.
all right. Rick, do you want to come forward?
Thanks, Rick.
Mr. Chairman, Rick Holcomb, DMV Commissioner. I'm still really not sure what the bill does. I understand the problem, and the problem was fixed a couple of years ago when we had legislation that said the license could be issued for no more than 8 years. So now you don't have that problem where someone has to get the license changed at 20, and then they may want to change it again when they get 21. We've eliminated that. I mean, I can tell you there's no reason why we would want to have a 5-year license. All this says is, well, Rick, we're not really sure we trust you. We're going to put it in the code. That's fine, but I'm, you know, we fixed the problem that the delegate was concerned with a couple of years ago. But you know, if you want, this bill does no harm to what we're doing, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what the problem is that we're trying to fix. But.
So you're basically trying to give someone who is under the age of 18 that has the vertical driver's license to be able to go back sooner and get the horizontal, and that cost is going to be.
Mr. Chairman, if I anticipate your question, no, that's not what we're trying to do, sir. The current law that the DMV has changed already takes care of that problem, so that a young person who wants to get his license after he turns 21, horizontally as opposed to vertically, they can go ahead and do so now. The problem is, based on the code language that's in front of you, we don't have anything that says you can go backwards. And DMV, I mean, of course, I trust Commissioner Holcomb, but this isn't about him personally or about the agency. It's the fact that statutorily, we say the license can expire no longer than 8 years, but there's no bottom cap. And if we made it at 5 years, which is what the DMV staff and I worked out, and they were fine with the language that we put in there, which is if you have a 5-year and an 8-year, then you solve the problem of the first license when you get at 16 expiring before 21. Because what you don't want to do is go back and say, by the way, the first license is going to now expire at 20 or 18 or 17, that we want to keep the minimum 5. And now there's some places in the code that already requires a shorter time. For example, I'm not sure what it is, sex offenders, foreign drivers. So unless otherwise allowed in the law. So the 5 years is basically just saying that there's a minimum and a maximum, because the code right now has a maximum, but there's no minimum. So that's, I mean, again, the commissioner may agree or disagree, but.
Rick, let me ask you a question. If this is in the code, is that going to, I mean, right now we have 8 years, and it's kind of now got to the point where everyone knows I go back to get my license, in 8 years I'm coming back again. How much more is DMV going to have to, I mean, how much more are you going to be paying for a 5-year license opposed to an 8-year license? Or is there a difference in the?
You're still going to be paying. You're still going to be paying per year, because because right now it's $32 for 8 years, so it's $4 a year. When it was $5, when it was a 5-year license, we got $20 for license. Now we get $32.
So it's set on a per year, not on a.
But Mr. Chairman, if this would. If this would satisfy the patron, right now for Real ID, the standard is about 8 years. So if you would just say, I shall issue an 8-year license, instead of somewhere between 5, less than 5 and no more than 8, we're fine with that. I mean, all that we've invested in Real ID, I am not going to come off that 8-year license. But if if that's what you want to say, we shall issue a 5-year license, I think that would.
No, sir. Mr.
I mean, an 8-year license,
Mr. Chair, can I just explain? I think we're getting really confused here. We're not creating a 5-year license. We're not.
You're setting a minimum.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that the code, because there's a cap on top, there's no cap on the bottom. We're not saying that the DMV is going to change the process, but under the law, they can, on their own, go back if they wanted to. So just by having that language in there, it just ensures that anytime the DMV wants to change this issue again, they're limited between 5 and 8 as opposed to 0 and 8. That's all it's trying to do. So
How often do you all want to go backwards?
Mr. Chairman, as long as I'm commissioner, I don't want to. I'm fine with an 8-year license. You're right. It's taken us a while to train everyone that you have an 8-year license. We still have people who forget that the license expires on your birthday, not the last day of the month. Y'all changed that about 10 years ago. So I don't ever want to go away from the 8-year license. Again, it's sort of the standard for Real ID, but I'm fine. If you want to put a minimum in the statute, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So if I'm being advised by my counsel that we can put a line amendment to make it 8 years and no minimum or no maximum.
if the DMV is fine with it, that's fine with me too, Mr. Chair. That just changes the intent of the bill, but that's it.
Senator Cosgrove.
Doesn't that pretty much nullify the intent of what Delegate Keene's trying to do here?
Yeah.
And I understand where
Well,
it goes with-
it doesn't prohibit them from going backwards. It gives them the leadway to do whichever way they want to go. Okay, you'll just read the line.
Mr. Chair, it's obviously up to the policy decision of this committee. Now, I will defer to your goal here. The goal here is very simple, which is a young man, the moment he turns 21, he can apply, pay whatever fee it is, and apply for a duplicate license. At that time, he'll be issued a sideways one. What we want to do is prevent the DMV from having it expire before he turns 21, so that the young man has to do that twice as opposed to one time. That's all we're trying to fix. Now, I trust Mr. Holcomb, and I trust his services and his agencies that they will not go back. But since the code right now says 8 is a maximum, but there's no minimum, I just thought it made more sense to have some kind of a minimum. That's all it was. And if you want to fix it at 8, that's a different policy question altogether. That's not what I brought the bill for. But if that's what you want to do, that's fine with me. Again, it's not the problem that I was trying to solve, but it's up to you.
Read the line a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 13 of the engrossed, strike, at no time shall any driver's license be issued for more than 8 years or less than 5 years, unless otherwise provided by law, and insert, every driver's license shall be issued for 8 years unless otherwise provided by law.
And that would prevent them from having to go back and get another license.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Senator Cosgrove.
Delegate Keene's example was somebody that got their license at 16. They turned 21, so that's a difference of 5 years. So in Virginia, if you're underage, you have a vertical picture. So it's easy for whoever's going to sell you beer or cigarettes or whatever to tell, if you're a minor or not. If we go with the amendment, basically you're stuck at 8 years, and that person's still going to have to then prove, and that person's just going to have to look a lot closer to see if they are underage. And so I don't see the problem with this bill. If the commissioner says, he can live with it, then I just don't see a problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Chase.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I actually really like this bill. I, once again, have 4 teenage kids, which I know y'all love to hear about. And I think there's a lot of physical changes that take place in this period of time, so we could actually help law enforcement. I'm thinking if we shorten that time period to 5 years, like you were saying, instead of 8 years. So I'm supportive of this bill for that reason.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, just the last word on this is, We are not creating a 5-year license. We're not asking the DMV to create a 5-year license. What we're saying is, since we already have in the code a maximum flexibility up to 5 years, up to 8 years, why don't we put a bottom floor as well, so that the DMV will not go back less than 5 years? That's all we're trying to do. So it's, I think the line amendment takes a different intent altogether, which, again, it's up to this committee and your policy decision.
So I guess I'm a little confused because I don't know of any 5-year licenses.
Mr. Chair, that is correct, sir. There is no 5-year license. And so what this bill would do is essentially say there cannot be any license that expire less than 5 years, just like currently there's nothing that expires more than 8 years. So we're just putting a floor and a cap, that's all, a ceiling and a floor, as opposed to just having a ceiling. That's all the bill was trying to do, and maybe I didn't explain it right, and I don't know, maybe it's just late in the day, but I didn't think this was such a big deal. It came out of the House unanimously because everybody thought it was a common sense measure. Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of things going over there we don't understand, so it's...
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, and I'm not on the Appropriations Committee, so I can't speak to that.
That's exactly. Rick, do you want to say something?
Mr. Chairman, just to answer your question, there are a number of licenses that are for 5 years. Well, there are 2. You'll remember back a number of years ago under the McDonald administration when we looked at the mature driving results. Now, once you turn 75, you get a 5-year license, and you have to come in every 5 years, have your picture taken, take the eye test. Also, if you're a sex offender, you have a 5-year license. If you're here under a limited duration, you're here and you get your license as long as you are here legally. That could be as low as 1 year, or it could be more. But so those are the 3 examples of where we issue a license less than 8 years.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favola.
I guess this is for Commissioner Holcomb. There's nothing in this bill that would require you to do anything differently than you're already doing.
No.
Correct?
I'm like the patron. Whatever y'all want to do from a policy standpoint is fine. But the answer to your question is yes.
That's
this does no harm to what we currently are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak to the bill? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the audience have any more ideas about what this bill does and not?
Any other ways?
Senator Cosgrove.
At the risk of irritating the very large chairman, who used to be a trooper.
No, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why we're doing it. Anyway.
I would move that we report the bill as presented.
It's been a motion and a second that we report this fine House Bill 387.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And maybe later on you can explain why we're doing it. But all in favor, vote aye.
Oh, boy. I think I broke the machine.
You did. Strike that and we'll try it again. No, I don't want to explain this on the floor. If you're going to vote for it, you better vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your time. Thanks, members.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Yeah, Delegate Pillion.
Are you sure?
No.
I mean, is there anybody else? I don't want you to show favoritism to Southwest Virginia.
No, don't worry. It's.
I won't. Don't worry. All right. Before you, Mr. Chairman, is House Bill 1178.
Just so the delegate knows, my bill is last.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. So over the years, the dealer board has wrestled with unlicensed sales activities and how to ensure that Virginia consumers are protected by licensing laws. This bill provides an additional tool by allowing the dealer board to seek an injunction against unlicensed activity. The board has limited resources to pursue all unlicensed sales activities. This bill will allow licensed dealers to pursue injunctive relief against persons engaged in unlicensed sales activities should a dealer choose to pursue it. These voluntary activities by dealers will supplement the enforcement activities of the dealer board for the benefit of the integrity of the industry and for the protection of the Virginia consumers. The bill also makes clear that this statute does not permit one licensed dealer to seek injunction against another licensed dealer. That was a concern expressed by Tesla.
And there's 2 amendments that
at least
limits the injunction. So if you'd report those amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a 3rd amendment added since we last talked. On line 42 of the engrossed, after who, strike is threatened with, and insert sustains. On line 43 of the engrossed, after license, strike the remainder of line 43 and through Commonwealth on line 44 and insert as required by subsection A. And the third is on line 47 of the engrossed, after A, strike singe and insert single.
So, is there a motion on those amendments? It's been a motion and a second on the amendments. All in favor say aye. Does anyone need to see the amendments before we move ahead? Anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I'd like to hear from Mr. Hall if he has a. No, ask him. He's the boss.
Anyone else beside Mr. Hall like to speak to the bill?
Mr.
Welcome,
Chairman,
Mr.
members of the committee, I'm Don Hall with the Virginia Auto Dealers Association. We've worked with CarMax and many others on this bill, and we believe you have a good bill before you. As amended, we are willing to accept those amendments and finally do no harm, in fact, clarify some things. So we hope you would support for this bill.
All right. Anyone in the audience like to speak in opposition?
I move to report the amended
Wait,
bill.
wait,
sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Yep. I understand that there was a conversation with you and the stakeholders about another amendment that would.
With me or with the patron?
Well, with the patron and the stakeholders. One of the concerns that I know Senator Wexton had raised, and I believe Senator Deeds had also talked about this, was that the motions could be filed not only in the city or county where the violation, where the person that committed the violation was located, but also in the city of Richmond. And my understanding is that there was a discussion about removing the circuit court for the city of Richmond as an option for where someone could file these motions. Did you have that conversation, or is this the first you're hearing of it?
Mr. Chairman, I did just have that conversation, and it was my understanding that the senator was going to offer that amendment herself.
Okay, do you accept that as a friendly amendment? Yes, so on lines 37 and 45 to 46, if a person commits a violation, a motion against that person can be filed either in the city or county where the person alleged to have committed the violation is located, or with the circuit court of the city of Richmond. And I think the concern was if you have someone who's in Northern Virginia, Southwest, or anywhere else, and you're filing your motions in the circuit court for the city of Richmond, that might be an undue burden on them. And so my understanding is there's sort of that you all don't view that as a harmful amendment.
Mr. Chairman, Ann Lee Kerr representing CarMax. We had a very quick conversation with Senator Wexton about amending it on line 45 and 46. On line 45, after is located, striking, or with the circuit court for the city of Richmond.
Yes.
And we will accept that.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
agree.
council just told me that that provision is also on line 37, and I'm not sure Senator Wexton realized that. Would you have a problem with the striking or with the circuit court for the city of Richmond on line 37?
I do, because that's the agency one, and I think you want the dealer board to be able to file in the city of Richmond.
Okay, then I will only, Ms. Chair, I move that on line 45 to 46, we strike or with the circuit court for the city of Richmond.
All right, we have a motion and a second that we strike line, is it 45? All right.
It'd be 45 to 46.
If council could read that real quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 45 of the engrossed, after is located, comma, strike, or with the circuit court for the city of Richmond.
All right. There's a motion and a second that we strike that line. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? All right. All right. There's a motion and a second that we adopt the bill, or we report the bill as amended. All in favor, vote aye. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute, I don't want to explain this one either. I'm sorry, strike the roll. I'm sorry, I got too many proxies up here. You take, I'll defer to you. All right.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13-0, bills reported.
Okay, the chairman has a bill, and he's going to deal with Delegate Rush's bill as well. Which one would you like to do first, Mr. Chairman? All right, sir.
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, the only two bills left is Delegate Rush's bill dealing with inspection stickers on motorcycles, as you all are.
We'd bring our attention to House Bill 1499.
House Bill 1499 is dealing with the placement of stickers on motorcycles. As most everybody knows, motorcycles normally have a sticker wrapped around the axle the fork of the motorcycle. And there has been some discussions if you've seen some of the stickers, they're mounting them on a plate on other places which are more visible. And this bill would just give them the ability for the placement of those stickers on the motorcycle on the plate of the bike.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? Is anybody here that'd like to speak for or against the bill? I would just say that I have a motorcycle. I got a Harley, and it's got a lot of chrome on it, and I hate that sticker on my forks. So I think this is a wonderful.
You know, when I was a trooper, I hated it too because I could see it better if it was on the plate.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Suderline.
I'd move that we report House Bill 1499.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we report House Bill 1499 as aptly presented by our chairman. All in favor, please say aye. Or vote aye, please. Mr. Chairman, I think you have.
Okay.
Right there.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
The board, it is reported.
Last, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 995. This is a bill that was sent down by the governor to the legislation is to seek to address some constitutional challenges with this section of the code, which is currently under litigation involving illegal signs and VDOT right-of-ways. And I know that the question will always arise. And I know this bill is on its way to the courts committee because of the fact that we're looking at doing something legislatively that's currently under litigation. The problem that I see is the fact that if you're dealing with the court schedule, this case is going to be heard and litigated and dispensed with sometime in March. So if the ruling is in the favor of the plaintiff, then there's a period of time between that ruling until we come back into session. So if this happens, then that time between March and us coming back into session, there's no regulations that VDOT's going to have on right-of-ways on highways. So there's no regulations on what kind of sign. I can just put up any sign, and I can put them on the right-of-ways blocking other signs, and that is what's trying to be addressed here and the urgency of it. Now, I have an individual from the Attorney General's office here, and I also have VDOT here that can explain further, but that's the reason the bill's before you and the reason that the urgency to do something when something's in litigation that we normally don't do.
All right, Mr. Chairman, am I correct? This has an emergency clause, correct?
It does.
All right. Is there anybody in opposition to this bill? Are there any questions of the chairman? Hearing none. Oh, Senator Suderline.
I guess I just don't I don't understand exactly why we're taking up legislation on something that's pending in court. So I guess if you could,
That's
you tried explaining it to me the other day, and I wasn't smart enough
Okay.
then. I hope I'm smarter today.
So right now, if this case was going to be heard sometime in September, October, and then we were going to be coming into session in January, then there would have been a short period of time that we would be here and able to fix this problem. But because of the court's schedule, they're taking this case up in March. So disposition on this case is likely to be done in March. And once disposition is done, and the likelihood is they're going to rule in the favor of the plaintiff, which the plaintiff says they had the right to put signs up on VDOT right-of-ways. And if they rule because the law wasn't clear that they didn't have the authority to do it, if they rule in the plaintiff's favor, then March, when this ruling comes down, all the rules change because we don't have a law in place. All the rules change, so from that point forward, VDOT cannot regulate anything that's put on the right-of-ways between March and the time that we come into session in January next year.
Could we hear from the Attorney General's office, just so there's a little bit of oil on the water, so to speak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Cobb, Deputy Attorney General. In regards to the Senator's query, just to provide a little bit more procedural context, a motion to dismiss was heard on January 26th in front of Judge Brinkema in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, as well as the Commonwealth opposing plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction. Of the criteria for which is evaluated during a motion for a preliminary injunction is likelihood of success on the merits. The judge opined from the bench that the plaintiff is likely to succeed on the merits of their constitutional challenge within their declaratory judgment account, which is what sets this slightly apart on a procedural posture and making it more of an issue of urgency, since the court has already indicated as much as to say what they are likely to rule based upon the facts as they know them.
All right, Mr. Chairman, should there be a motion to report the bill? Again, understanding there's an emergency clause to it, it should go, be referred to courts.
They've asked, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions of the patron or anybody else? Anybody speak in opposition to the bill? A motion is in order. It's a governor's bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Suderman.
I'd like to make a motion and then speak to it after I made it briefly.
Go ahead.
I move that Senate Bill 995 be reported and re-referred to the Committee on Courts of Justice.
Is there a second? Second. All right.
Speaking of that motion briefly,
Senator Suderman.
I still don't know enough about this, but I think it makes sense to have our friends on the Courts Committee take a look at it. And then after that, if they report it, I don't know how I'll be on the floor, and I understand it matters a lot since it's got an emergency clause, but I just want to get it to courts as quickly as we can so we can have those discussions there.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion to report and re-refer to courts? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye on the voting machine.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
The bill is reported. Mr. Chairman, are there any other bills?
That's all the bills, and just for your information, everyone, and there's not many here left, look at your calendars for March 1st. We want to do the transportation dinner on March 1st at another location. We're trying to pin that down.
I think Morton's would be good, sir.
I think it would be too, but the chairman's paying for this. So that's it. And next Wednesday, I think we have 7 bills maybe. So we should get done in a pretty quick and orderly fashion. So
All right,
appreciate
that
your
being
time.
said, committee, at the chairman's order, will rise.